Appreciate next CYInterview bringing you Las Vegas and the world. Today we welcome Las Vegas entrepreneur Chris Lowden. He is the founder of the Las Vegas country bar and restaurant Stoney's Rockin Country. The venue is known to feature many of country music's rising stars. Additionally, is also invested in Italian restaurant entertainment venue Vic's Las Vegas, among other businesses in town. It's got a great history in Las Vegas in the business world and hospitality segment. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today on CYInterview. How are you?
Good.
And also joining us today is CYInterview sponsor, the founder of Epic Financial Strategies LLC, and the author of the new book, of course, Surviving Success, Mr. Rob Gill. Rob, thanks for joining us back on CYInterview today.
Thanks for having me. As always, it's an honor, and I love doing these interviews.
We enjoy having you, Rob, of course. So just, Chris, can you just give us a little background about your family, you, and your entrepreneur spirit, your business owner spirit, all the things you guys do in Vegas? I know it's a very open question, but let's hear it.
Well, probably started with my dad. Bought his first casino in 1970, 71. And I say that to sort of flip, but he's a pretty hardworking guy. And, he had done stuff before that, but really bought the hacienda. That was sort of the first piece in his business development. Then we purchased the Sahara, I think in '82. Purchased the Pioneer in Laughlin in '88. Built and opened the Santa Fe in '91. And and then amongst other things, obviously. And my stepmom, Sue, originally known as Sue Parkinson at Channel 8, she was an anchor. But they went on together to do a lot of great things. And they're both very hard workers. It's like they work. So that's sort of instilled in you. Even though I took a little bit of it was a little bumpy of a road, right? When you're 17, 18, 19, living in Vegas, and you're living in the penthouse of the Sahara Hotel your senior year in high school. But you learn from your parents, and it's just work ethic. All right, put your mind to it. You work hard, build it, they'll come.
Rob, I'm sure you got a bunch of questions, so I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, I think, and for the rest of the interview, so we don't get confused, I'll say CL for Chris. So Chris, you don't get confused, if that's okay.
Of course, absolutely, sure.
Yeah. So, because CL, let me ask you a question. You're in high school. My first silly question is, did you have any high school parties in that presidential suite?
Actually, no.
Amazing.
Nope, I never had a party in there.
Amazing. Did you grow up in the greater Nevada area in those early years? Or
yes.
Okay, yep. So dad's working hard, you're a young kid, whatever, 5, 6, 7, and then one day he comes home and says he's buying a casino. Is that how it went down?
My parents were divorced, and and one day it just sort of, he was already working a lot anyway. But then, one day he just, I think he made the deal on a tennis court with the bank.
So was he like, before we get into the casino, was he like just a guy that owned businesses and somehow made it to it? Like, how do you go buy a casino? You know what I mean?
He was already doing things in a smaller fashion, and then it just sort of graduated to the hacienda, basically. Owned by Doc and Judy Bailey. They had passed away, so it was in a receivership or trust or something. And at the bank where my dad had been doing business with, and they made a deal, and he bought it.
And so now, just a question on this, and obviously high level. We don't have to get specific, because we'll talk about my book, but it is called Surviving Success, and it's tying into my question right now. How did your dad, and you're watching this as a young kid, 17 and thereafter, not just survive the success, but all of the challenges in owning a casino, and sometimes people being who people are, right? And how was that whole was that like a constant stress? Was it a constant elevation? Like, what was that like?
Well, so I've he's just a hardworking guy, right?
Yes,
I'd probably oversay that, but
yep.
You go to work, right? You put one foot in front of the other. You get to A to B, and it wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, we're very special people. It wasn't like that. We're just,
Yep.
you're just a family that this is what you do and this is what you own,
Fair
and you
enough.
work hard, and and at the end of the day, it takes a team of people, right? You have one guy sort of steering the ship, but it still takes a bunch of people to run that thing. So
No question.
I think it wasn't like, you're sort of busy just building things.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing process. I'm not hearing any outcome. I'm just hearing next project and elevating from the previous. Chris,
Yeah.
back to you, brother. Whatever you got.
And then what ends up happening, of course, he learns from his father, and for the last 18 years, he's had the hottest country music bar and restaurant in Las Vegas called Stoney's Rockin' Country.
Oh.
So no, Vix is the Italian place with the classical music. They got all these different things going on. He's got like 4 or 5 different businesses in Vegas, Rob.
Yeah,
Got these big venues going on. So tell me about Stoney's first, Chris, and then tell us a little bit about Vix and the other places.
So Stoney's, there used to be a place called Gillies inside the Frontier, and it was where I used to hang out. And well, a lot of us did. And one day, the general manager, his name was Stoney, he comes to us and he says, "Hey, man, I hear they're gonna tear this place down. They're gonna build some new casino, and I'm just not included in any of the conversations. And I just could you find out if there's going to be a Gillies, right? Because he's like, I don't know where I would work, because it was at that time, it was so, still today, so there aren't very many country western places. So it turns out that they were going to tear it down and build something called Montreux, and that was a high end, super modern sort of jazz place, and there was no room for a Gillies. So a couple of us decided to get together and open up this new project right when Gillies was closing, and it was way down on South Las Vegas Boulevard, close to the South Point. And we decided what originally was called Duke's, and then we decided to change it and call it Stoney's, because everybody knew Stoney from Gillies. He was GM. Everybody, so all the locals knew him. And that was it. We opened it, and then we moved 5 years later to Town Square and been there ever since.
And Rob, they've had some of the biggest country stars of music perform on their stage before they've gone on to bigger stardom as well, which is just the most incredible part of it.
Yeah, and it sounds like, Chris, you've been there your whole life. Chris CL, you've been there your whole life, so you know the ins and outs and have good relationship capital along the way. And to be able to expand on what your dad did, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
So, next 5 years?
Yeah, what's the outcome?
Hopefully semi-retired, turn this over to my kid or my brother, and let them run it.
So what does semi-retired look like for you?
Probably not going to work every day.
Got it. And what would you do to replace it?
That's a good question. Probably do some race. I as a hobby will go racing. I used to drive. Now I just have a car. So I'll probably do a little more of that. Maybe maybe a little more breakfast. Something not as stressful.
And Chris Yandak, how did you and CL get together? Because you're
well, we have been covering Stoney's and his venues for quite a while through the person that represents all of the things and the happenings of CYInterview is one of the leading outlets spreading all the news about Stoney's and Vix and all those places. And Chris, tell us about Vix, which is your newest venture, which have had open for about a year now.
So originally we were talking to the city about some other development, and they had said, "Oh, by the way, how would you like a tavern?" And which means a place with 15 machines. And my first response is, "Well, if you're trying to sell me one, probably not." So they said, "No, it's in Symphony Park, and it's this great location." And it seemed cool, although you would definitely, you're early, because they had all these plans for a hotel and more apartments and all this stuff. But so we we thought that might be kind of cool. And Vic's started out as a pop acoustic country lounge. And it's something I designed for the Virgin in Nashville, but then COVID came, so it all went to pot. And I had this, concept. So they saw it and they loved it, and that's what we're going to do. But at the same time, my dad and a guy named Johnny who owns Birdland in New York, they were thinking about um, building a birdland on the strip, which seemed to me like a great idea. So we put some stuff together and went out there and tried selling it to some of the casinos, and they liked it, but not that much, right? They were like, not sure if that's the direction that we need to go. So kind of at the last minute, we just changed up direction and changed the design, and turned Vic's into a straight jazz venue. But being next to the Smith Center, it seemed like the most logical place. Knowing that there's going to be a hotel being built, which is now under construction, condos, more apartments. I mean, Symphony Park's is kind of a cool place, and it's safe. It's secured. There's lots of security guards driving all over the place, and um, law enforcement, and so it's an interesting place to come hang out at night. And once developed, I think this thing is going to be super cool.
Yeah, just for the record, Rob, the Smith Center is for many of the great music acts that perform in Vegas. And this
I want to go to Vic's.
Hall.
I can't wait to go to Vic's if it's Italian food. I'm excited.
Yeah, he'll be. It's phenomenal. So then, Rob, let me just give you a moment. Why don't you tell Chris CL a little more about surviving success while you're here?
So Chris, I wrote a book. I come up blue collar, Bayonne, New Jersey, 75,000 people. My dad was a police officer, worked 3 jobs. He was a police officer for 27 years. My mom was a domestic engineer. She stayed at home. And every single month, we ran out of money by the 20th of the month. That's what I was born into. A financial, what I call a scarce money mindset, not only with me, but the neighborhood in general. Anyone that had money, we thought were bad. Everybody knew each other's business. And within that space, there was drugs and alcohol involved. And for me, I was lucky enough to get sober by the time I was 26. But, I was brought up in an environment with love, but also no expectation of anything great when it came to finances, and had 33 first cousins, all beautiful people, a lot of love, but no financial education. So for me, I was following that path. I went to college and I successfully had 65 credits and a 1.6 GPA, and I failed off the basketball team successfully. And my intramural team, we won the championship because I was just a really good basketball player. I couldn't keep relationships. I couldn't pay, my credit cards, and got back to Bayonne after being in Vermont for 4 years, accumulating those 65 credits and learning successfully what not to do in the game of life. I then became a bartender, landscaper, and I was destined to be at the corner of a bar for the rest of my life. And I felt like the clock of my life was running out. In the mix was cocaine, and God got in the way, thank God. And I have an older sister that did get sober at one point in her life. So that was always a real thing for me. And when I got sober, I was lucky enough to live a life of financial. I learned how to make money, but I didn't know how to keep it myself. And, one of my greatest mentors, teachers, is actually Chris's partner, Jay. He came into my life at a time when I first got sober, and taught me a lot of things that still stick to this day. And I went from making 12 grand to $1 million within 7 years.
Wow.
The challenge with the $1 million is I couldn't handle it emotionally. I stayed sober, but I couldn't handle it emotionally. I felt like I didn't deserve it. So I started doing things subconsciously where I could survive, at least at that point, that financial success. Right. But once again, Jay came in my life at the right time. Again, the first time was 95. The second time was 2012. And when you think about that, that's pretty cool. If you think about it, 17 years later. And, a lot of things that we talked about between 2012 and 15, I began to incorporate 2015 to 2020, where I completely changed my business model, but I had to work on myself. I had to work on my wealth wounds. I had to know that if it is to be, it's up to me, and it's okay to forgive myself, but it's also important to confront my wealth wounds that I had.
Right.
And that's what we talk about in the book. And it's really my journey to financial freedom through all the different, if you look at a mountain, the base camp increase on a mountain, to be able to handle this money and handle, let's call it, success and guilt with that success, and, local celebrity success. When I say local, I mean in my small environment, and being able to understand the trappings of that and then articulate that message to other people. And that's what the book's about.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to read it now.
Yeah, we'll send you a copy. Thank you, Chris Yandak, for that plug.
You're absolutely right. We'll connect with you guys. Final question for CL, Rob, before we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we know what the 5-year game plan is. We know that he stood on the shoulders of his dad and understands the message is hard work. Legacy, CL, what is your, when you do shuffle off this mortal coil, what do you want to do?
At the end of the day, I think we're just, my dad's, he's leaving something for his children, and I'm leaving something for my children. And I don't find myself any more special than anybody else. And I think that's a key as well. It takes a lot of people to make stuff work, and you may have the ideas and drive and stuff, but there's a lot of people that help you get where you're at. And I that's a big thing. Is you can't forget that.
I agree with that 100%, and thank you so much. That's probably one of the most important things, building out relationship capital, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think honestly, me sitting here with both of you today, CL and Mr. Rob Gill, I think you both would make a powerful team with your experiences. CL, Rob does ongoing seminars where he brings on inspiring people and all kinds of things like that. I think you'd be perfect for one of his future seminars for sure.
Cool.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
So we're gonna leave it there. Las Vegas entrepreneur Chris Lowden of Stoney's Rockin Country, Bix Las Vegas, and many other great entertainment venues in Las Vegas. And of course, you want to be sponsored, the founder of Epic Financial Strategies LLC, Mr. Rob Gill, and author of Surviving Steps. Thank you both for being on CYInterview today, and hang on with me. Thank you for watching today's CYInterview segment from Las Vegas. Please hit the like button and please hit the subscribe button to be updated on all future CYInterview content from Las Vegas and beyond.